The crystalline spires of the Galactic Military Academy pierced the purple skies of Centauri Prime, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Admiral Vexthor stood at his observation post, all 6 of his eyes fixed on the approaching human transport ship. His scaled fingers drummed nervously on the railing, creating a rhythmic clicking that betrayed his anxiety. "They're actually coming," muttered Commander Zolax, her tentacles writhing in agitation. "Deathworlders, in our academy." The academy had stood for 10,000 years as the premier military training institution in the known galaxy. Its halls had produced the finest strategists, tactical geniuses who had maintained peace across 20,000 worlds. And now, thanks to the Galactic Council's latest initiative for inclusive species integration, they were about to admit their first human cadets. The transport ship, small and utilitarian compared to the elegant vessels of the Academy's fleet, touched down with surprising grace. The landing ramp extended with a hiss of hydraulics, and out stepped 20 human cadets, their faces set with determination and barely contained excitement. Admiral Vexthor's translator implant struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire conversations among the humans as they gathered their belongings. Their movements were quick, decisive, almost predatory. It was easy to see why they were called Deathworlders. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Vexthor announced, his voice carrying across the landing pad. "I am Admiral Vexthor, and I will be overseeing your integration into our program." A human female stepped forward, her dark skin contrasting with the stark white of her cadet uniform. "Captain Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force. We're honored to be here, Admiral." Her voice carried authority despite her junior rank, a trait that didn't go unnoticed by the watching alien officers. As the group moved through the Academy's halls, Vexthor couldn't help but notice how the humans absorbed every detail of their surroundings. Their eyes darted to defensive positions, exit routes, tactical advantages. It was instinctual, almost unconscious. "The Academy's curriculum is rigorous," Commander Zolax explained as they walked. "The cornerstone of our training is the Helios Protocol, a complex series of tactical simulations and strategic exercises that typically takes a decade to master." Several humans exchanged glances, and Vexthor's translator picked up scattered whispers. "A decade. Must be some protocol. Bet we can crack it faster." They'd reached the simulation chamber, a vast spherical room lined with neural interfaces and holographic projectors. The human cadets spread out, examining the technology with undisguised curiosity. "This chamber," Vexthor continued, "houses the most advanced military simulation system in the galaxy. It's here that you'll begin your training in the Helios Protocol. Most species require years just to grasp the basic concepts." Captain Chen raised an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Admiral, humans tend to learn differently. We have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention." "Indeed," Vexthor replied diplomatically, though his scales rippled with skepticism. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." "Computer, initialize Helios Protocol. Phase 1. The chamber hummed to life, holographic displays filling the air with tactical data, fleet movements, and strategic scenarios. The human cadet's eyes lit up with something that made Vexthor's scales tingle. Was that hunger? "The Helios Protocol," explained Commander Zolax, "requires perfect coordination of fleet movements across multiple dimensions of spacetime, accounting for quantum uncertainties and tactical probabilities. The first phase alone has never been completed in less than 2 years." Captain Chen stepped forward, her eyes scanning the complex data streams with remarkable focus. "Lieutenant Kumar," she called out, "what do you make of these quantum matrices?" A young human male with sharp features joined her, his fingers moving through the holographic displays with surprising dexterity. "They're using standard quantum encryption, Captain, but look at these patterns. There's a rhythm to them." "Like a dance," added another cadet, her eyes narrowing. "Each fleet movement creates a ripple effect across spacetime." Vexthor and Zolax exchanged worried glances, The humans weren't just examining the protocol. They were dissecting it, finding patterns that had taken other species centuries to recognize. "Admiral," Captain Chen said suddenly, "request permission to attempt Phase 1. The request sent a shockwave through the observing alien officers. Commander Zilax's tentacles went rigid. "Absolutely not. You haven't even completed the basic training modules." But Vexthor raised a hand, silencing his subordinate. In all his years at the Academy, he had never seen such confidence, such certainty. "Permission granted, Captain. Though I must warn you, failure in the simulation can be disorienting." Chen smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both respectful and predatory. "Thank you, Admiral. Team, battle stations. Kumar, take quantum analysis. Rodriguez, fleet logistics. Patel, temporal coordinates. Let's show them how Earth handles a challenge." As the human cadets took their positions around the chamber, Vexthor couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to witness either a spectacular failure or the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. The simulation began, and with it, the greatest challenge to 10,000 years of galactic military tradition was about to unfold. The simulation chamber erupted into chaos, but not the kind Admiral Vexthor had expected. Instead of the usual methodical, step-by-step approach to the Helios Protocol, the humans moved with an almost terrifying synchronicity. Their hands flew across control interfaces. Their voices overlapped in rapid-fire communication that seemed more like a complex percussion performance than military commands. "Kumar, shift the quantum matrix 30 degrees on my mark." Captain Chen's voice cut through the chamber. "Rodriguez, I need those fleet formations tightened up. Think school of fish, not parade ground." "School of fish?" Commander Zilax whispered to Vexthor, her tentacles twitching in confusion. "Earth aquatic life form behavior," Vexthor explained, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They move in. Wait, what are they doing?" The holographic representation of the human fleet was shifting, breaking away from the traditional rigid formations of the Helios Protocol. Instead of maintaining the expected geometric patterns, their ships flowed like liquid, constantly changing shape and density. "Sir," Lieutenant Kumar called out, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface, "we're detecting a pattern in the space-time fluctuations. They're not random, they're more like waves." "Waves?" Captain Chen's eyes lit up. "Like ocean waves. Rodriguez, remember that surfing simulation you showed me?" "Already on it, Captain." Rodriguez grinned, making adjustments to their fleet's movement patterns. "We're going to ride the quantum tide." The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human fleet began to move in perfect harmony with the space-time fluctuations, using the very chaos of quantum uncertainty to propel themselves forward. It was completely contrary to 10 millennia of established doctrine, and it was working. "Impossible," breathed Commander Zilax. "They're treating quantum space-time like water." Vexthor finished, his scales shifting colors in amazement. "They've taken one of the most complex concepts in advanced spatial mechanics and related it to something from their homeworld's oceans." The simulation progressed at an unprecedented pace. Where other species painstakingly calculated each quantum probability, the humans seemed to feel them intuitively. Their ships danced through space-time like schools of fish navigating ocean currents, using the very chaos of quantum mechanics to their advantage. "Phase 1 completion at 60%, announced the computer. Time elapsed 4 hours, 17 minutes. A murmur ran through the alien observers. Phase 1 had never progressed beyond 20% in less than 3 months. The humans weren't just breaking the conventional timeline, they were shattering it. But it wasn't just their speed that astounded the Academy staff, it was their methodology. Traditional approaches to the Helios Protocol emphasized perfect control and prediction. The humans, instead, embraced chaos and uncertainty, turning them into advantages. "Captain," Vexthor called out, unable to contain his curiosity. Your approach is unprecedented. How did you conceive of this strategy? Chen's eyes never left her tactical display as she answered, On Earth, Admiral, we learned long ago that trying to control chaos is futile. Better to understand it, flow with it, use it. The universe isn't a machine. It's alive, dynamic, unpredictable, just like us. Phase 1 completion at 80%, the computer announced. The human cadets had begun to sweat, their movements showing signs of fatigue, but their coordination never faltered. They had formed what they called a neural net, each cadet anticipating and complementing the other's actions without explicit communication. Kumar, quantum wave approaching from Vector 7, called out Rodriguez. I see it, Captain, if we time this right. Do it, Chen commanded. The human fleet suddenly dove into a massive quantum distortion, a maneuver that violated every safety protocol in the Academy's database. The alien observers held their breath, expecting disaster. Instead, the fleet emerged on the other side, their energy signatures amplified by the quantum wake. Phase 1 completion at 95%. The computer announced, causing several alien officers to drop their data pads in shock. Commander Zillax turned to Vexthor, her voice barely a whisper. Admiral, if they complete Phase 1 in a single day, the implications will be revolutionary, Vexthor finished, his scales now pulsing with excited colors, or devastating, depending on one's perspective. The human cadets had begun humming. Actually humming. In harmony with the quantum fluctuations, their fleet movements had become almost musical, a symphony of spatial mechanics that defied conventional analysis. Phase 1 completion at 99%, the computer announced. The chamber fell silent. Even the humans held their breath. 10,000 years of tradition, of carefully developed doctrine, hung in the balance. Captain Chen's voice cut through the tension. Kumar, Patel, final quantum surf. Rodriguez, prepare for the landing. Just like catching the perfect wave. Their fleet made one final graceful movement, riding a massive quantum distortion like a surfer on a tsunami. The holographic display erupted in a dazzling array of colors as energy patterns aligned in perfect harmony. Phase 1 complete, the computer announced. Total time elapsed, 5 hours, 42 minutes. New Academy record established. The human cadets erupted in cheers, hugging each other and exchanging high fives. A curious Earth victory gesture that the alien observers found both primitive and oddly compelling. Admiral Vexthor stood motionless, his scales cycling through colors that hadn't been seen in the Academy for centuries. The humans hadn't just completed Phase 1. They had fundamentally transformed their understanding of quantum spatial mechanics. Captain Chen, he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of tradition. I believe we have much to learn from each other. Chen smiled, wiping sweat from her brow. Admiral, this was just the warm-up. Wait until we show you what we can really do. As the humans celebrated their victory, Commander Zillax approached Vexthor. Admiral, should we proceed with Phase 2? Vexthor watched the humans, noting their exhausted but triumphant expressions, their unshakable confidence, their natural ability to adapt and innovate. No, Commander. First, I believe we need to rewrite our understanding of what's possible. The galaxy has just changed. We better change with it. The day wasn't over yet, and somehow, Vexthor knew that this was only the beginning of what these remarkable Deathworlders would show them. News of the humans' extraordinary achievements spread through the Academy like a quantum cascade. Within hours, the station's quantum communication network was flooded with incoming transmissions from every major military power in the galaxy. The Grand Council itself had convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of what the media was already calling the human paradigm. Admiral Vexthor stood in the Academy's Grand Amphitheater, now packed with the most prestigious military minds in the galaxy. Supreme Commander Axtol of the Regellian Defense Force, their crystalline form gleaming under the amphitheater's lights, sat in the front row. Behind them, arranged in order of their species' military influence, sat hundreds of generals, admirals, and tactical specialists from across known space. "This is unprecedented," Supreme Commander Axtol's crystalline voice resonated through the chamber. "The Helios Protocol was designed to be unsolvable in less than a decade. It is a teaching tool, not a test to be conquered." Captain Chen and her team stood at attention before the assembled military leadership, their posture perfect but their eyes bright with barely contained excitement. The rest of the human cadets watched from a designated observation area, their presence sending ripples of unease through the alien audience. Perhaps, Admiral Vexthor replied carefully, "We need to reconsider our understanding of unsolvable." He turned to the assembled leaders. "I propose we proceed with Phase 2 immediately." A chorus of objections erupted from the gathered officials. Phase 2 of the Helios Protocol was traditionally attempted only after years of preparation. It simulated multidimensional warfare across parallel timelines, something that had driven more than one gifted student to temporary insanity. "I accept," Captain Chen's voice cut through the chaos. The chamber fell silent. Lieutenant Kumar stepped forward, his dark eyes scanning the holographic displays that had begun to materialize around them. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Phase 2 parameters. They're using 11-dimensional space-time coordinates." "Only 11. Rodriguez grinned. "That's practically flat space compared to that old Earth game. What was it called?" 4D chess. Several alien officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The humans were treating one of the most complex military simulations ever devised as if it were a recreational activity. The simulation chamber's neural interfaces activated, creating a vast holographic battle space that extended in directions that made several observers' sensory organs ache. Phase 2 had begun. What followed would be debated in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human cadets approached the multidimensional battlefield not as a problem of mathematics and physics, but as a dance of possibility and imagination. "Kumar, establish quantum entanglement between timeline alpha and delta." Chen called out. "Rodriguez, I want temporal wake disruption patterns." Patel, calculate intersection points for parallel universe bleed-through. Their fleet movements defied conventional tactical analysis. Where traditional doctrine called for careful separation of timeline interactions, the humans deliberately created controlled temporal collisions, using the resulting chaos as weapon and shield simultaneously. They're using temporal feedback loops as amplification corridors, Commander Zilax observed, her tentacles writhing in a mix of horror and admiration. "It's like they're treating time itself as a weapon." Supreme Commander Axtol's crystalline form vibrated with increasing frequency. "This violates every principle of temporal warfare we have developed over millennia. And yet it works," Vexthor finished, his scales pulsing with excitement. The human fleet was now operating simultaneously across multiple timelines, using quantum entanglement to coordinate actions that rippled through parallel dimensions. They had turned the very fabric of space-time into a tactical advantage. "Timeline convergence detected in sectors 7 through 12, the computer announced. "Causality violation risk at acceptable levels." Acceptable levels. An alien admiral scoffed. "There shouldn't be any causality violations at all. This is madness." But it wasn't madness. It was human innovation at its finest. Captain Chen's team had recognized that the traditional approach of avoiding timeline interactions was actually limiting their tactical options. Instead, they embraced controlled chaos, using it to create opportunities that shouldn't have been possible. "Kumar, initiate the Schrödinger maneuver," Chen commanded. "The what?" Commander Zilax whispered to Vexthor. "I believe," Vexthor replied, his voice filled with wonder. They named it after an Earth scientist who proposed a famous thought experiment involving a simultaneously alive and dead feline. The human fleet suddenly existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making it impossible for any defensive system to accurately target them. It was a technique that violated dozens of tactical principles, and it was brilliant. Phase 2 completion at 70%, the computer announced. Time elapsed 3 hours, 12 minutes. The assembled alien leadership watched in stunned silence as the humans continued to rewrite the rules of multidimensional warfare. They weren't just completing the protocol, they were revolutionizing it. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, his fingers dancing across the temporal controls, "I think we found something interesting in the quantum foam layer. It's like surfing between universes." "Show me," Chen ordered, her eyes gleaming with the light of discovery. The tactical display shifted, revealing patterns in the quantum foam that no one had ever noticed before. The humans had found ways to navigate between the very threads of reality itself. Phase 2 completion at 90%, the computer announced. Time elapsed 4 hours, 47 minutes. Supreme Commander Axtol rose from their seat, their crystalline form now pulsing with rapid frequencies. "Admiral Vexthor, I believe we must reconvene the Grand Council. What we are witnessing here, it changes everything." Vexthor nodded, his scales shifting through colors that reflected both excitement and apprehension. The humans weren't just succeeding, they were transforming their understanding of warfare itself. As Phase 2 approached completion, Captain Chen turned to address the assembled leadership. "Distinguished commanders," she said, her voice steady despite hours of intense concentration, "we understand that our methods may seem unconventional, but in facing the challenges of our homeworld, humans learn that survival often requires thinking beyond established boundaries." Phase 2 complete, the computer announced. Total time elapsed 5 hours, 3 minutes. New Academy record established. The amphitheater erupted in a chaos of voices, debates, and exclamations. The humans had accomplished in hours what took others decades, and they had done it by completely reimagining the fundamentals of tactical theory. Admiral Vexthor stepped forward, raising his hands for silence. "My fellow commanders," he announced, "we stand at a turning point in galactic military history. The question before us now is not whether to accept these changes, but how to adapt to them." As the debate raged on around them, Captain Chen and her team exchanged quiet smiles. They had done more than complete a training protocol. They had opened the galaxy's eyes to new possibilities, and they were just getting started. The Academy's central command chamber had never seen such chaos. Holographic displays flickered with incoming messages from every corner of the galaxy, while heated debates erupted between various factions of the military leadership. The completion of Phases 1 and 2 of the Helios Protocol in less than a day had sparked a crisis of doctrine that threatened 10 millennia of established military theory. High Marshal Kirks of the Centaurian Defense League slammed his crystalline appendage against the command table. "This is heresy. These humans aren't just breaking protocol. They're destroying the very foundations of tactical doctrine." Admiral Vexthor watched as Captain Chen and her team stood calmly before the assembled leadership, their posture relaxed despite the storm raging around them. They had spent the last few hours explaining their methods to increasingly agitated senior officers. "With respect, Marshal," Chen interjected, her voice cutting through the chaos, "we're not destroying anything. We're evolving it. The foundations are still there. We're just building new floors on top of them." Lieutenant Kumar stepped forward, bringing up a holographic display of their quantum surge maneuvers. "Look at this pattern here." He pointed to a complex web of intersecting timelines. "We're actually using your traditional formations as anchor points. It's like jazz improvisation around a classical piece." The alien leaders exchanged confused glances at the unfamiliar reference, but something in Kumar's explanation seemed to resonate with Supreme Commander Axtol. Their crystalline form hummed thoughtfully. "Show me," Axtol commanded, moving closer to the display. What followed was a masterclass in human innovation. Kumar and Rodriguez demonstrated how they had taken the classical principles of the Helios Protocol and transformed them into something new. They hadn't abandoned the old ways, they had transcended them. You see, Rodriguez explained, manipulating the holographic controls with practiced ease, traditional doctrine treats quantum uncertainty as an obstacle to be minimized. We treat it as an ally. It's like surfing a wave instead of trying to stop the ocean. Commander Zilax's tentacles writhed with sudden understanding. They're not fighting against natural chaos. They're working with it. Exactly. Chen smiled. The universe is chaos. Time is chaos. Trying to impose perfect order on it is like trying to freeze a river. But if you learn to swim with the current, she gestured to Kumar, who brought up a new simulation. The human fleet moved through quantum space like a school of fish, using temporal eddies and quantum fluctuations to their advantage. It was beautiful, organic, and terrifyingly effective. But what about predictability? Demanded General Ixtal of the Regellian fleet. How can we maintain strategic control if our fleets are improvising? That's just it, Chen replied. We're not sacrificing control. We're redefining it. Our methods are actually more reliable because they work with natural phenomena instead of against them. The debate raged on, but something had shifted in the room. The initial shock and outrage were giving way to curiosity, especially among the younger officers. Several alien commanders had begun taking notes, their various appendages moving furiously across datapads. Admiral Vexthor, Supreme Commander Axtol's crystalline voice resonated through the chamber. I believe we must make a decision. The humans have demonstrated not just mastery of our protocols, but an ability to transcend them. The question is, are we prepared to evolve? Vexthor looked around the room, his scales shifting through thoughtful colors. The old guard was still resistant, clinging to millennia of tradition. But others were beginning to see the possibilities. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should consider a practical demonstration. Captain Chen, would your team be willing to attempt Phase 3? The room fell silent. Phase 3 of the Helios Protocol was theoretical, a simulation so complex that no species had ever attempted it. It involved simultaneous warfare across multiple dimensions, timeline manipulation, and quantum-level fleet coordination. Chen looked at her team. Kumar nodded eagerly, his fingers already twitching toward the controls. Rodriguez grinned, cracking his knuckles. The other human cadets in the observation area leaned forward, their eyes bright with anticipation. Admiral, Chen replied, we thought you'd never ask. The simulation chamber powered up once again, its neural interfaces connecting to the human cadets. The holographic battle space that materialized was unlike anything the Academy had ever seen, a multi-dimensional maze of intersecting timelines and quantum possibilities. Remember, Chen called out to her team, just like surfing the quantum waves. Feel the flow, ride the chaos, make the impossible possible. As the humans began their attempt at Phase 3, Admiral Vexthor noticed something extraordinary. The alien officers who had been most opposed to their methods were now watching with undisguised fascination. Even High Marshal Kirks had fallen silent, his crystalline form vibrating in harmony with the quantum fluctuations. They're not just changing our tactical doctrine, Commander Zilax whispered to Vexthor. They're changing us. Vexthor nodded, his scales pulsing with the colors of dawn, the traditional marking of a new era. Perhaps, he replied. That's exactly what we needed. The human cadets moved as one, their movements synchronized with the chaos of quantum spacetime. They weren't just completing a protocol anymore. They were writing the future of galactic warfare. And as Vexthor watched them work, he realized that the galaxy would never be the same. Phase 3 had begun, and with it, the final transformation of 10,000 years of military tradition. The age of rigid doctrine was ending. The age of human innovation had begun. 1 month after the humans' revolutionary completion of the Helios Protocol, the Galactic Military Academy looked very different. The once rigid corridors now buzzed with mixed species training groups, and the sound of animated discussions echoed through halls that had known only respectful silence for millennia. Admiral Vexthor stood in his favorite observation post, watching the latest batch of cadets practicing what had become known as Chen maneuvers in the space above the Academy. Ships moved in fluid formations that would have been considered heretical just weeks ago, their patterns following the natural flow of quantum currents. Remarkable, isn't it? Supreme Commander Axtol materialized beside him, their crystalline form refracting the light of the three suns. In 1 month, they've accomplished more change than we managed in 1,000 years. Below them, in what had once been the traditional simulation chamber, Captain Chen was leading a mixed class of human and alien cadets. The room had been redesigned according to human specifications, with holographic displays that showed not just tactical data, but also Earth concepts like ocean waves, weather patterns, and even dance choreography. The quantum foam behaves like water. Chen's voice carried through the observation window. Don't fight it. Feel it. Let it guide your movements. A young Regellian cadet's crystalline appendages moved in perfect harmony with the quantum fluctuations, earning approving nods from both human and alien instructors. They'd done more than just change our tactical doctrine, Commander Zilax observed, her tentacles moving in unconscious imitation of the human gestures she'd been studying. They've changed how we think about everything. She wasn't exaggerating. The humans' approach to the Helios Protocol had sparked a revolution that extended far beyond military applications. Scientists across the galaxy were re-examining fundamental principles through the lens of human intuition. Engineers were redesigning spacecraft to work with natural phenomena rather than against them. Admiral, Lieutenant Kumar's voice crackled over the comm system. You might want to see this. We're ready to test the new hybrid fleet formations. Vexthor and his fellow officers moved to the main observation deck. In the space above the Academy, a fleet of ships representing every major species in the galaxy had assembled. The vessels were arranged in what looked like chaos to the untrained eye, but Vexthor could now see the underlying patterns, the harmony in the apparent disorder. Begin the demonstration, he ordered. What followed was a display that would have been impossible to imagine just weeks ago. Ships of vastly different designs and capabilities moved together in perfect synchronization, using each other's strengths and compensating for weaknesses. Human intuition combined with alien technology, creating something entirely new. They're beautiful, breathed a young Centaurian cadet, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion. Like a dance among the stars. Captain Chen appeared on the command deck, her uniform now bearing the new insignia of the Combined Fleet Training Division. Admiral, the latest test results are in. The hybrid formations are showing a 300% increase in combat effectiveness, and that's just the beginning. But it wasn't just the military achievements that made this moment historic. Vexthor looked around at his command staff, human and alien officers working side by side, their differences becoming strengths rather than barriers. The humans hadn't just taught them new ways to fight. They'd taught them new ways to collaborate, to innovate, to grow. Captain, Vexthor said, his scales shifting through colors of pride and optimism, I believe it's time to make it official. The Council has approved the formation of the first official mixed-species rapid response fleet. Chen's eyes widened. This was unprecedented. A fleet combining the best ships and crews from every species, designed to respond to threats that would have once required multiple separate fleets to handle. And Vexthor continued, enjoying the moment. They want you to command it. The room erupted in cheers, a very human reaction that had become increasingly common in the Academy's halls. Even the most traditional alien officers had begun to appreciate these spontaneous displays of emotion. Sir, Chen replied, her voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. I'm honored, but this isn't just about humans anymore. This is about all of us, learning from each other, growing together. As if to emphasize her point, the hybrid fleet above them executed a perfect quantum surge maneuver, a human technique performed by alien ships, coordinated by a mixed-species crew. The maneuver created a ripple effect through space-time that was visible, even from the observation deck, a physical manifestation of how profoundly things had changed. They said Earth was a death world. Commander Zilak's mused, watching the display. Perhaps that's true. But it's also a world of life, of adaptation, of endless possibility. And now, thanks to them, so does the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Vexthor nodded, his scales displaying colors that hadn't been seen in the Academy for generations. The colors of Renaissance, of rebirth. The humans hadn't just mastered the Helios Protocol. They'd shown the galaxy a new way forward, a path that combined the best of all species into something greater than the sum of its parts. As he watched the combined fleet dance among the stars, Vexthor realized that this wasn't just a new chapter in military history. It was the beginning of a new era for all of them. The humans had arrived as students, but they had become teachers, showing the galaxy that the greatest strength lay not in rigid doctrine or ancient tradition, but in the ability to adapt, to innovate, and most importantly, to work together. The age of separation was over. The age of unity had begun. And somewhere out there in the vast expanse of space, new challenges awaited this combined force of humans and aliens, ready to test their newfound strength and solidarity. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Vexthor realized, was exactly what they had needed all along.